Aish Tamid tukad al hamizbeach loy tichbe. An extraordinary pasuk telling us that the fire on the mizbeach, on the altar of the Mishkan, and later on the Beis HaMikdash, is Tamid lo tichbe, is 24/7, was never allowed to go out. This fire burnt continuously. And this was, as the pasuk says, al moikdo. This was the moked. This was the center point. Even in modern Hebrew, the word moked means a center, means a focal point. Lihitmaked means to focus on something. The Kohanim had to focus all the work that they were doing. The center point was this Aish Tamid, this constant flame which was never allowed to go out. Interestingly, Rashi brings down here, Gemara in Yuma Daf Memhei, that on the top of the Mizbeach there were in fact three separate fires burning. Three separate bonfires, if you like. Each one of them had a different function. There was one, the Maracha Gedola, the biggest fire, was designed in order to consume the parts of the Korbanos on a daily basis. The second fire provided charcoal for the Mizbeach HaKatoris, for the incense burning. And the third was Aish Tamid, was simply there in order that there should be a constant flame. Although Rashi tells us that the word Tamid is a bit of a giveaway, that there was another use used for this fire, and that was the Ner Tamid of the menorah. On the daily lighting of the menorah, the Kohen didn't take the flame from a box of matches. He took a flame from this third maracha, this third fire which was burning on the Mizbeach, and these three marachas really represented, if you like, the three functions. The Mefarshim tell us the three functions of fire itself. Fire consumes, and that was consuming the burning up. Fire soref, burns up the korbanos. Fire also creates warmth and heat, and that was for the ketoris to create charcoal. And fire produces light, and the light was the light of the menorah, and this was the Aish Tamid. And this was the focal point of all the work of the Kohanim, revolved around tending and feeding and preserving this fire. Interestingly, that the Aish, the image of Aish in the Torah, has this function, but it also has another function, that the Torah itself, the learning of Torah, is referred to as Aish Dat Lama. The beginning of Parshat V'zos HaBracha, the Torah itself is an Aish Dat, are the laws of fire. The learning of Torah is compared to the fire in many places in Chazal, right? That this is the Kod Devorai Ka'esh, says the Novi, that my words are like fire. And in fact, the Zohar says that the very, very first word of the Torah, Bereshis, is an anagram. If you rearrange the letters of the word Bereshis, you get the words Berit Aish. That the Torah itself is a covenant of fire. So we have here something very interesting, that even though for us today, the details of Parshas Tzav, the details of inaugurating the Kohanim, dressing the Kohanim, and all the details of all the Korbanos seem to be a bit distant to us, but the Torah is at a different level, telling us a different message completely. And that is that the Torah itself, the learning of Torah, the wisdom of the Torah, the text of the Torah, the Shivim Ponim La Torah, the infinite depth and breadth of the understanding of the Torah, that in itself is the fire which never goes out. The Aish Tamid of this week's Parsha is on one level the burning of the Korbanos, which unfortunately we don't have anymore, but will one day be reinstated V'sechazenu Einenu B'shuvcha L'Tzion B'rachamim on the Har Habayis. But for the time being, we do have is the Aish HaTorah. And we have a very interesting concept, which I'd like to look at just for 1 minute, and that is referred to by the first Baal HaTurim on the Parsha, who sends us to a Gemara in Menachos Daf Kuf Yud, the closing lines of the Gemara of Menachos, which is really the end of Zevachim in Menachos, where we find most of the halachas about the Avodah and the Beis HaMikdash in all its detail. So there, Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, he says, Kala osek b'Torah's olah ki'ilu hikriv olah. The Torah doesn't say Zos ha'olah, the Torah says Zos Torah's ha'olah. The Torah's ha'olah means that in addition to the practical details of the Korban, there is the Torah of the Korban. the wisdom, the learning, the understanding, the kedusha of the words and the ideas of the Torah, that is a separate malacha. And that is something which lasts beyond the actual physical korbanos. The physical korbanos lasted for a certain amount of time in the Mishkan and the Bais Rishon and the Bais Sheni. But after that no longer existed, it didn't mean that we've lost the light of the Aish Tamid. The light still exists. A bit like scientists tell us when we look up at the evening sky, we see some stars, and those stars, the light coming from those stars often has taken hundreds of years to travel through space and reach us at the speed of light, but they are light years away. And very often scientists tell us that those stars physically have ceased to exist. Those stars it's a bit of a frightening thought. You look at the sky and you see stars, you think you see stars. What you're seeing is the light from those stars, which is reaching us, even though in all likelihood many of them don't exist anymore. They've already died. But we still get the light. In the same way, the Beis HaMikdash is physically not around anymore, but the light of the Beis HaMikdash is still with us. And the light is Tamid. The light is eternal. And that light is the light of the Torah. And therefore the Chasam Sofer says that Moshe Rabbeinu Tzav es Aaron Mizbonav Leimar, you've got to tell Aaron this double message. The one message is that physically he has to tend to the fire on the Mizbeach and all the Korbanos, but spiritually he's got a different malacha completely, and that is teaching Torahs Ha'olam. Zos Torahs Ha'olam. And in actual fact, the Pasuk in V'zos HaBracha, which describes the destiny and the vocation of Shevet Levi, the Kohanim and Levim, starts off by saying, Yoru Mishpatecha LeYaakov, Chukov Mishpatav LeYisrael. The primary role of the Kohanim and Levim was Yoru, was to be Horah, to teach Torah, to teach the values, the meaning, the mitzvahs, the emunah, the Yiras Shamayim of the Torah. That was their primary goal. And then it's also true, they also have to do the korbanos, but the primary job is the Torah. And this is what Chazal meant when they said, if you teach the Torah of these korbanos, ki'ilu hikrif korban. Nowadays that we don't anymore have the korbanos, we are able to learn the Torah, and the learning of the Torah of the korbanos is not just zeicha, we're not just trying to remember something of old, but it's ki'ilu hikriv korban. We are actually, by learning the Torah, we are able to bring these korbanos on a daily basis. The Kliyaka actually says something very beautiful, but taking this idea a little bit further. The Kliyaka says that we find in Parshas Tzav 5 times with 5 korbanos, we say Torahs ha'olah, Torahs ha'mincha, Torahs ha'chatas, Torahs ha'osham, and Torahs ha'shlamim. All different 5 types of korbanos mentioned in this week's parsha. Each one of them uses the word Torah, speaks about not just bringing the korban, not just the chatas, but the Torahs ha'chatas, not just the shlamim, but Torahs ha'shlamim. And says the Kliyaka, this actually corresponds to the Chamishe Chumshei Torah. Now the Chumash itself is divided up into 5 books, and each one of these books actually represents one of these korbanos. The 5 major categories of korbanos, very briefly I'll just touch upon it, and that is that the Bereshis represents the Olah, because we find that Cain and Hevel brought an Olah, Noach brought an Olah, and at the Akedah it says with the Ayah, V'ya'alei Olah Tachas Beno, the korban Olah, which is completely burnt and not eaten at all by anybody, that was primarily the starting point of Bereshis. Shemais says the Kliyaka corresponds to Torahs HaMincha, because all the menachos were matzah. All the menachos were brought as a form of matzah. Some with oil mixed this way, some with oil mixed that way, but they were all matzah. And that is Shemais and Pesach, and that is Yetzias Mitzrayim, represented by the Lechem Oni of Matzah. That was the Menachos in the Beis HaMikdash. But Yikra is Torahs HaChatos, because all of the korbanos essentially provided a kapara for Klal Yisrael, who had been through the Chet HaEgel and needed an atonement, and that was the primary underlying theme of Vayikra. Bamidbar, is Torah Ha'osham, because there as well, Bamidbar tells us about all the mistakes and the grumbling and the pessimism and the rebelliousness in Sefer Bamidbar throughout the years in the desert, and that required Torah's Osham, which also is a type of a atonement offering. And then you come to Devarim, and in Devarim we've got a different story completely. That is already Shlomim. Shlomim means that Klal Yisrael were at peace with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were involved in HaKadosh Baruch Hu at a different madrega. In Sefer Devarim, we find different mitzvahs. We find V'atem adveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem, the idea of dveikus. We find the mitzvah of V'ahavtu es Hashem Elokecha, Avas Hashem, which we hadn't found in the earlier books of the Chumash. So Sefer Devarim takes us onto a different planet. And as we find the Nesivas Shalom, for example, says that the first 4 types of karbonos we bring as avodim, we bring as servants to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But shlomim, we are bonim l'Hashem Elokecha. There are 2 modes of relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, im kavonim, im ka'avodim. Sometimes we are like avodim. With avodim, we do as we are told. But sometimes we are like kabonim. And bonim actually are a different, closer relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's why shlomim can also be eaten by the bailim, the owners, partake of the korban itself, because he says the bnei HaMelech, the children of the Melech, they eat at his table. The avodim don't eat at the table, they serve the food. So sometimes the kohanim serve the food, but sometimes we are actually, the kirvas Hashem, the closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is so much that we can bring shlomim, we can bring a korban todah, we can thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for chazdei Hashem. And all this revolves around the idea that if we have the korban, we'll do it, but all the mitzvahs in the Torah, when you can't do a mitzvah, but you can learn the Torah of the mitzvah, it's ki'ilu hikriv korban, ki'ilu also all tariag mitzvahs, and that's what, in that way we are able to fulfill all 613 mitzvahs, some of them in practice, and most of them in theory, through learning the Torah and attaining the light, the Kedusha, the Aish Tamid, and Yirotz, and that fire should burn continuously for us and future generations, La'olam Vayet.